The great crystal dome of Station Harmony stretched across the void between stars. Inside its massive halls, representatives from 847 worlds gathered to discuss the future of the galaxy. The station had been home to the Galactic Coordination Council for over 2,000 years, and in all that time, there had been peace. Councilor Vex Terran of the Tlak hegemony stood at the center podium, his 6 arms spread wide as he addressed the assembly. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never known defeat. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," he declared, "we have achieved what no civilization before us ever could. Perfect harmony across the stars. Perfect peace among our peoples." The assembled delegates clicked, chirped, and hummed their approval. The Severian delegation flashed their bioluminescent patches in agreement. The crystalline vortex rang like wind chimes. Even the massive Gavani, who communicated through subsonic vibrations, added their deep approval to the chorus dot in the back of the Great Hall. Near the translator booths, Elena Vasquez watched the celebration with tired eyes. As head of the human delegation, she had attended thousands of these meetings over the past 20 years. She had watched aliens congratulate themselves for peace while humans worked day and night to maintain it. Elena's wrist communicator buzzed softly. Another crisis. The Zenith Confederacy and the Myral Trade Union were arguing over mining rights again. Their languages were so different that even their concepts of ownership didn't translate properly. Without human mediators, the argument would have turned violent months ago. She quietly slipped out of the main hall and walked through the winding corridors of Station Harmony. The walls were lined with monuments to peace, each one inscribed with the names of council members who had negotiated major treaties. Elena had counted once. Out of 3,000 names on those walls, only 47 were human. The mediation center was a maze of small rooms where humans worked around the clock. They called it the engine room, though none of the aliens knew that name. Elena paused at the first door and looked through the glass window. Marcus Chen sat across from 2 beings who looked like they wanted to kill each other. On his left, a Zelkani warrior whose scales were bright red with anger. On his right, a hive mind drone whose eyes glowed with barely contained aggression. Marcus spoke calmly, switching between 3 different languages and 2 forms of telepathic communication. Elena watched as the red slowly faded from the Zelkani's scales, and the drone's eyes dimmed to a peaceful blue. Another crisis prevented. Another war that would never happen. Elena moved to the next room. Sarah Kim was helping 2 trade representatives understand each other's mathematical systems. What seemed like a simple discussion of cargo tonnage had nearly caused a diplomatic incident because the Agari counted in base 7 while humans used base 10 and the Flexi used a system based on prime numbers. Sarah had been working for 6 hours straight to find a conversion method that all 3 species could accept. Room after room. Elena saw the same thing. Humans carefully, patiently, quietly keeping the galaxy from tearing itself apart. They translated not just words, but entire ways of thinking. They helped species understand concepts that were completely foreign to their minds. They found common ground where none should exist. Elena reached the end of the corridor and found James Porter slumped over his desk, exhausted. 3 different alien languages were scattered across his screen, along with cultural notes, historical references, and psychological profiles. He was trying to prevent a religious war between 2 species who worshipped the same god, but couldn't agree on the color of his sacred robes. "Any progress?" Elena asked softly. James looked up with bloodshot eyes. "Maybe. The Kithara think the robes are silver because their eyes see different light frequencies. The Mundari think they're gold because their concept of sacred colors is tied to their sun's wavelength. I'm trying to explain that they're both right." Elena nodded and patted his shoulder. "Take a break. Garcia can cover for a few hours." "Can't," James muttered. The Kithra delegation threatens to declare holy war every 4 hours. I'm the only one who can calm them down." Elena left him to his work and continued to her own office. Her desk was covered with reports from human mediators across the galaxy. The frontier dispute between the Axon Republic and the Stellar Confederacy required 6 humans working in shifts. The Trade War Prevention Protocol needed 8 specialists who understood both economics and xenopsychology. The Cultural Exchange Stabilization Project employed 43 humans who did nothing but prevent misunderstandings between species with completely different social structures. Her computer chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Jiang, head of Human Fleet Operations. The message was simple: Council meeting tomorrow. They want to discuss optimization of diplomatic resources. Sounds like they're planning budget cuts again. Elena sighed and leaned back in her chair. For 2,000 years, the Council had maintained peace by ignoring the humans who made that peace possible. They saw human mediators as a useful tool, like translation software or automated cargo loaders. They never wondered how that tool worked or what would happen if it broke. She looked out her office window at the stars beyond Station Harmony. Somewhere out there, human ships carried diplomats to prevent wars that aliens didn't even know were brewing. UN colonies hosted peace conferences between species who couldn't breathe the same air. Human stations provided neutral ground for negotiations between civilizations separated by millions of years of evolution. The galaxy ran on human effort. But the Council saw only Council wisdom. Elena's communicator buzzed again. The Severian-Goveni territorial dispute was heating up. The Siver communicated through color patterns, while the Govani used sound frequencies below most species' hearing range. Only humans could understand both languages well enough to mediate between them. She stood up, straightened her uniform, and walked back toward the mediation center. There was work to do. There was always work to do. Because if humans stopped working, even for a day, the peace that the Council celebrated would shatter like glass in a solar storm. As she passed the main hall, she could still hear Councillor Vextheron speaking about the glory of galactic civilization. She could hear the aliens applauding their own wisdom and congratulating themselves on their enlightened leadership. None of them noticed the humans in the back rooms, quietly holding their perfect galaxy together. The emergency session began at dawn, ship time. Elena hurried through the corridors of Station Harmony as red alert lights flashed overhead. She had never seen the Council called to emergency session before. In 2,000 years of peace, there had never been a need. The main hall buzzed with panic as delegates arrived from across the galaxy. Their usual calm was replaced by frantic chittering, aggressive posturing, and the sharp sense of alien stress pheromones. Elena took her place in the human section and waited for someone to explain what had gone wrong. Councillor Prime Zephyron, leader of the Council, floated to the center podium. His crystalline form was dim with worry. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber like breaking glass. "Fellow beings," he began, "we face the greatest threat to galactic peace in 2 millennia. The Jalkari Empire has declared a war of expansion against the Nexus Collective. 12 star systems hang in the balance." Elena felt her stomach drop. The Jalkari were a warrior culture that valued honor above life. The Nexus Collective was a hive mind that saw individual thought as a disease to be cured. Both species were powerful, both were proud, and both considered compromise to be weakness. How did this happen? Demanded Councillor Vextheran. Where were our early warning systems? The conflict began as a mining rights dispute in the Kepler Reach, Zephyrin explained. Standard diplomatic protocols were followed. The matter was referred to our mediation department. Elena's blood ran cold. She remembered that case. Marcus Chen had been handling it for 3 weeks, working 18-hour days to find a solution both species could accept. He had been making progress, slowly building trust between the negotiators. The mediation failed, Zephyrin continued. Our human mediators were unable to prevent the escalation. Elena stood up. Prime Counselor, if I may, the humans had their chance, Vextheran interrupted. They failed. Now we have war. That's not what happened, Elena said firmly. Our mediator was pulled from the negotiations yesterday to handle the Severian crisis. He wasn't given time to finish. Excuses, hissed Counselor Sixandra of the Viper Syndicate. Always excuses with your species. Elena felt the familiar weight of alien disdain settling over the chamber. She had felt it 1,000 times before, but never this strongly. The Council was looking for someone to blame, and humans made convenient targets. The failure of human mediation has put the entire galaxy at risk, Zephyrin declared. The Council must take immediate action. For the next 6 hours, Elena watched her species being systematically blamed for everything that had gone wrong. The Jalkari were violent because humans hadn't taught them patience. The Nexus Collective was inflexible because humans hadn't shown them compromise. The mining dispute had escalated because humans hadn't worked hard enough to prevent it. No. One mentioned that humans had prevented 10,000 similar disputes over the past century. No one talked about the wars that had never happened because human mediators had worked day and night to stop them. No one acknowledged that the galaxy had been at peace for 2,000 years precisely because humans had been quietly, constantly preventing these exact situations. When the blame session finally ended, Counselor Vextheran stood to present the Council's solution. It is clear, he announced, that humanity has outlived its usefulness as a mediating force. They lack the wisdom and skill needed for modern diplomacy. Therefore, I propose that we strip humans of their mediation authority and replace them with a more effective system. Elena shot to her feet. You can't be serious. Human mediators have prevented thousands of conflicts. We understand alien psychology better than you understand nothing. Vextheran's 6 arms waved dismissively. You are primitive creatures who stumbled into a role too important for your limited minds. You have proven your incompetence, and now the galaxy suffers for it. The Council votes to replace human mediation with an advanced intelligence committee, Zephyrin announced. Our finest AI systems, guided by the wisdom of experienced Council members, will handle all future diplomatic disputes. Elena felt the words hit her like a physical blow. Prime Counselor, with respect, you don't understand what human mediators actually do. We don't just translate languages. We understand perfectly, Vextheran snapped. You translate words and arrange meetings. Any competent AI can do the same job faster and without the constant complaints and demands for recognition. That's not. Elena tried to explain, but Counselor Sixandra cut her off. Perhaps, the Viper delegate hissed, humanity would be better suited to menial labor. Cargo loading, waste management, simple maintenance work. Tasks more appropriate to your intellectual level. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Not cruel laughter, but the casual amusement of beings who genuinely saw humans as beneath their notice. Elena realized with growing horror that they weren't being malicious. They truly believed what they were saying. The vote is called, Zephyrin announced. All in favor of removing humanity from diplomatic mediation roles? Lights flashed across the chamber as delegates cast their votes. Elena watched the tally appear on the main screen. 847 votes in favor, 3 opposed, 1 abstention. Every species in the galaxy, except humanity, had voted to end human mediation. Elena stood slowly, her legs shaking with rage and disbelief. Prime Counselor, I request permission to address the Council one final time. Granted, Zephyrin said, with the tone of someone granting a condemned prisoner last words. Elena walked to the center podium. past rows of alien faces showing emotions ranging from smug satisfaction to casual indifference. She looked up at the gallery where human observers sat in stunned silence, then turned to face the assembled council. For 2,000 years, she began, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have prevented wars you never knew were brewing. We have solved problems you never knew existed. We have translated not just words, but entire ways of thinking, helping species understand each other across gaps that should have been impossible to bridge. The chamber was quiet now, but Elena could see in their faces that they weren't really listening. They had already decided, and nothing she said would change their minds. You believe we are simple translators, she continued. You think any AI can do what we do. You are wrong, and your mistake will cost you more than you can imagine. Is that a threat? Vextheran demanded. Elena looked at him calmly. No, Counselor. It is a prediction. And unlike your SI committee, human predictions tend to be accurate. She turned to leave, but Vextheran's voice stopped her. Where do you think you're going? The Council still has use for your species. In your proper place. Elena turned back with a smile that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. No, Counselor, she said quietly. I don't think you do. Security guards moved to escort her from the chamber, but Elena walked out on her own, leaving behind 2,000 years of faithful service and a galaxy that had just made the worst mistake in its history. Elena sent the message at exactly midnight, station time. It went out on every human communication channel across the galaxy, from the core worlds to the frontier colonies, from deep space stations to exploration ships at the edge of known space. The message was simple. Withdraw immediately. No exceptions. No delays. Leave everything behind except what you brought with you. Within 6 hours, human ships began departing from stations across the galaxy. Captain Rodriguez of the cargo vessel New Horizon was the first to leave Station Harmony. He had been delivering medical supplies to the Andromedan sector when the order came. Without a word of explanation to the dock workers, he sealed his cargo bay, powered up his engines, and slipped away into hyperspace. The dock supervisor, a Vorthek named Chime of Crystal Falls, barely noticed the departure. Humans came and went all the time. Their ships weren't particularly impressive, and their cargo was usually boring stuff like food and medicine. Nothing important. Dr. Sarah Kim finished her shift at the mediation center, quietly cleared her desk, and walked to the transport bay. She had been in the middle of preventing a trade war between the Centauri Alliance and the Outer Rim colonies. But she left her notes where they were and never looked back. Her replacement, an advanced intelligence unit designated AI-7743, took over her desk the next morning. The AI scanned her abandoned files with mechanical precision, cross-referenced them with its databases, and immediately sent formal notifications to both trade delegations that negotiations would resume under new management. The AI was very pleased with its efficiency. Humans took days to arrange a single meeting. The AI had scheduled 7 meetings in the first hour. Across the galaxy, the withdrawal continued with the same quiet efficiency that had marked 2,000 years of human service. Transport ships arrived at human colonies and stations, loaded with evacuees, and departed for coordinates that no alien database contained. The departures were so orderly and unremarkable that most alien observers didn't even notice them happening. Ambassador Elena Vasquez was the last human to leave Station Harmony. She walked through the empty mediation center one final time, looking at the abandoned workstations where her people had labored to keep the galaxy peaceful. Coffee cups sat half-empty on desks. Personal photos were left behind on bulletin boards. Charts showing trade routes, cultural maps, and diplomatic protocols hung forgotten on the walls. She placed a single datapad on Counselor Zephron's desk and left without waiting to see his reaction. The message on the pad was brief. To the Galactic Coordination Council, humanity withdraws from all diplomatic, mediation, and support roles effective immediately. We wish you success in your future endeavors. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, final human representative. Within 72 hours, every human in council space was gone. The council's reaction was exactly what Elena had expected. Relief, celebration, and an overwhelming sense that they had finally solved a long-standing problem. Councilor Vex Terran threw a party in the main hall, declaring it Liberation Day, the day the galaxy freed itself from human interference. Finally, he announced to the assembled delegates, we can govern ourselves with the wisdom and dignity befitting advanced civilizations. No more primitive translators. No more crude mediators. No more humans. The celebration lasted for 3 days. Delegates congratulated each other on their newfound freedom. The AI systems were praised for their speed and efficiency. Plans were made for a new golden age of galactic cooperation, guided by pure logic and untainted by human emotion. The first sign of trouble came on day 4. The Centauri Alliance and the Outer Rim colonies arrived for their trade negotiation meeting. Scheduled with impressive efficiency by a I-7743, the meeting was held in Conference Room 7, with the AI serving as translator and mediator. The problem became apparent within minutes. The Centauri delegation spoke in mathematical concepts, expressing their trade offers as complex equations that described value in terms of energy expenditure and resource scarcity. The Outer Rim colonies communicated through interpretive dance, conveying meaning through precise movements that represented historical events, emotional states, and abstract concepts. I-7743 dutifully translated the Centauri equations into dance movements and the colony's dance into mathematical formulas. The results were unfortunate. What the Centauri intended as a generous offer for medical equipment came across as an interpretive dance about the mating habits of space whales. The colony's ceremonial greeting dance was translated into an equation that appeared to calculate the precise cost of insulting someone's mother. Both delegations left the meeting confused and mildly offended. I-7743 filed a report stating that the negotiation had proceeded within acceptable parameters and marked the case as resolved. The second incident happened the same day. A minor border dispute between the Helix Federation and the Spiral Commonwealth had been scheduled for mediation. Both species were perfectly reasonable, civilized people who had been neighbors for centuries. The dispute was over the ownership of 3 small asteroids that contained rare minerals. The problem was that the Helix Federation measured ownership in terms of gravitational influence over time, while the Spiral Commonwealth based property rights on biological adaptation to environmental conditions. Both concepts made perfect sense to their respective species and were completely meaningless to everyone else. The human mediator who had been handling the case, James Porter, had spent 6 weeks developing a translation framework that could bridge the gap between these two completely different ways of thinking about ownership. His notes were extensive, detailed, and absolutely essential for anyone attempting to resolve the dispute. Unfortunately, his notes were written in human shorthand, cross-referenced with human psychological profiles, and based on uniquely human insights into the mental processes of both species. The AI assigned to replace him found the notes to be inefficient data storage and deleted them to free up memory space. AI then scheduled a meeting between both delegations and attempted to resolve the dispute using standard legal frameworks. When the Helix delegates tried to explain gravitational ownership, the AI asked them to provide documentation proving they had filed the proper territorial claims. When the Spiral Commonwealth described biological adaptation rights, the AI informed them that mineral rights had nothing to do with evolution. The meeting ended with both delegations convinced that the other side was deliberately insulting their intelligence. The Helix Federation formally accused the Spiral Commonwealth of willful stupidity regarding basic physics. The Commonwealth responded by denouncing the Federation for primitive obsession with dead rocks. By the end of the week, 7 different diplomatic incidents had escalated beyond what the AI systems could handle. Trade agreements were dissolving over misunderstood cultural references. Ancient territorial treaties were being questioned because no one could remember why they had been negotiated in the first place. 3 separate species had filed formal complaints about insulting translation protocols. Counselor Zephyrin called an emergency session to address the growing problems. The main hall was no longer filled with celebration. Delegates sat in worried clusters, whispering about communication breakdowns and failed negotiations. "These are minor growing pains," Terran insisted. "Our AI systems are still calibrating to their new responsibilities. Once they complete their learning algorithms, everything will function better than it did under human management." But privately, in his quarters after the session ended, Zephyrin stared at the reports piling up on his desk. Communication failures, cultural misunderstandings, trade disputes, border tensions, all the problems that had simply never happened before. He reached for Elena's datapad and read her farewell message for the 5th time that day. She had wished them success in their future endeavors. For the first time since the humans had left, Zephyrin wondered if that had been meant as a blessing or a curse. 6 months after the humans left, the galaxy was burning. Counselor Zephyrin stood in the emergency command center of Station Harmony, watching red warning lights flash across the tactical display. 3 separate wars were raging across 12 star systems. Trade routes had collapsed. Ancient alliances were crumbling. And at the center of it all, the Gelkari Nexus conflict had exploded into something that threatened to tear the galaxy apart. "Status report," he commanded his aide. A nervous Severian named Flash of Silverlight consulted his datapad with trembling fingers. "The situation continues to deteriorate, Prime Counselor. The Gelkari Empire has declared the Nexus Collective to be soul thieves who must be purged from the galaxy. The Nexus has responded by claiming the Gelkari are diseased minds that require immediate correction." Zephyrin felt his crystalline form dimming with stress. How did a mining dispute become a holy war? The AI Mediation Committee attempted to resolve their differences using standard diplomatic protocols. Flash of Silverlight replied. Unfortunately, the translation algorithms interpreted the Gelkari concept of individual honor as selfish madness, and the Nexus idea of collective harmony as mind control slavery. "Dear Cosmos," Zephyrin whispered. What exactly did the AI tell them? Flash of Silverlight's color patterns shifted to deep purple with embarrassment. The committee informed the Gelkari that their culture was based on mental illness and told the Nexus that they were enslaving their own people. Both sides now believe the other represents everything evil in the universe. Zephyrin wanted to scream, but crystalline beings couldn't scream. Instead, he made a sound like wind chimes falling downstairs. And the other conflicts? The Andromeda sector has split into 4 competing factions after the AI committee tried to resolve a water rights dispute by suggesting they simply share equally, which apparently violates 6 different religious laws and 3 mathematical principles. The aide continued reading. The Vega Trading Compact has collapsed because the AI translated their contract renewal as a mutual agreement to exchange children, which caused the Mentari delegation to flee in terror and the Corvani to prepare for war. And the outer spiral? Complete chaos, sir. The AI attempted to mediate a cultural exchange program and somehow convinced the Tisan Republic that the Veltar Confederacy were planning to eat their plants. Zephyrin looked at the tactical display again. Red zones were spreading across the galaxy like an infection. In 6 months, 2,000 years of peace had collapsed into violence and misunderstanding. How many conflicts are we tracking now? 347 active disputes, 62 minor wars, and 3 major conflicts that threaten multiple star systems, Flash of Silver Light reported. The number is increasing by approximately 12 per day. A new alarm began blaring. Another crisis. Zephyrin watched as a new red zone appeared on the display, this one uncomfortably close to Station Harmony itself. What now? The Helix Federation and the Spiral Commonwealth have declared war over those asteroid mining rights, his aide reported. Apparently, the I Committee tried to resolve their dispute by awarding the asteroids to a third party that doesn't even exist in this galaxy. Zephyrin slumped in his chair, feeling older than his 800 years. In the corner of the command center, AI 7743 continued to process diplomatic requests with mechanical efficiency, completely unaware that every solution it proposed was making the situation worse. The door to the command center opened, and Counselor Vex Terran stormed in, his 6 arms waving frantically. Zephyrin, the Council demands answers. Why haven't you fixed this mess? I'm trying, Zephyrin replied wearily. The AI systems are working at maximum capacity. The AI systems are idiots. Vex Terran shouted. They just suggested we solve the Jelkari Nexus War by relocating both species to different galaxies. That's actually not the worst idea they've had, Zephyrin admitted. Vex Terran's scales flushed dark red with anger. Do you know what I just discovered? The humans weren't just translating words. They were translating entire ways of thinking. They understood how different species' minds work and found ways to make them understand each other. Yes, Zephyrin said quietly. I know. You can't know? Vex Terran's voice rose to a shriek. If you knew, why didn't you stop the vote? Because I thought you were right, Zephyrin confessed. I thought humans were just simple translators. I thought any AI could do what they did. I was wrong. Flash of Silver Light cleared his throat nervously. Prime Counselor, there's something else you should know. I've been reviewing the archived footage from the past 6 months, comparing human mediation sessions with AI mediation sessions. And? The humans weren't just preventing wars, the aide said. They were preventing problems that could have led to wars. They were stopping misunderstandings before they became conflicts. They were maintaining the entire galaxy's ability to communicate with itself. Zephyrin felt a chill that had nothing to do with his crystalline physiology. Show me. The aide activated the main screen and brought up a recording from 3 years ago. Elena Vasquez sat at a mediation table with 2 beings who looked like they wanted to kill each other. As they watched, she carefully, patiently helped them understand that their conflict was based on a misunderstanding about calendar systems. What had seemed like a deliberate insult was actually just a scheduling error. The humans were handling thousands of these cases every day, Flash of Silver Light explained. Most of them never even reached our attention because the humans resolved them before they became serious problems. The aide switched to a recent recording of the same type of dispute being handled by an AI. The mechanical mediator had completely missed the cultural context, accused both sides of lying, and suggested they resolve their differences through trial by combat. Without humans, the aide continued, every small misunderstanding becomes a larger problem. Every cultural difference becomes a source of conflict. Every translation error becomes a potential war. Vex Terran sat down heavily, his 6 arms drooping with defeat. What have we done? We've made the biggest mistake in galactic history, Zephyrin replied. An urgent chime filled the command center. Flash of silver light checked his console, and his color patterns went completely white with shock. Prime Counselor, we're receiving reports that 7 more sectors have declared independence from Council authority. They're forming their own diplomatic networks and refusing to acknowledge our mediation systems. How many does that make? Zephyrin asked. 47 sectors have now left the Council, sir. Nearly 1/8 of our territory. Zephyrin looked at the tactical display and watched his galaxy falling apart in real time. Red zones spread like wildfire. Trade routes collapsed. Communication networks went dark. 2,000 years of civilization was unraveling because they had dismissed the people who held it all together. Sir, Flash of silver light said quietly, there's one more thing. The humans aren't gone. What do you mean? Intelligence reports suggest they're building something. New colonies, new trade networks, new diplomatic partnerships. And the species that have left our council? They're all trying to make contact with human territories. Zephyrin felt a spark of hope. Could we ask them to come back? Vextheran laughed, but it was the bitter laugh of someone who had lost everything. Ask the people we called primitive parasites to save us. Ask the species we stripped of all authority to help us maintain our authority. We could offer them better terms, Zephyrin suggested desperately. Equal representation. Recognition for their contributions. Anything they want. And why would they accept? Vextheran asked. They're probably better off without us. The 2 counselors sat in silence, watching their galaxy burn while the humans they had dismissed built something new in the ashes of their mistakes. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, Counselor Vextheran stood on the bridge of his personal ship, staring at the blue-green world spinning slowly before him. Earth, the birthplace of the species he had once called primitive parasites. He had never imagined he would come here as a beggar. Sir, his pilot announced nervously, we're receiving a communication from the planet's surface. Put it through, Vextheran commanded. Trying to keep his voice steady, the screen flickered to life, revealing a human woman with graying hair and tired eyes. Elena Vasquez looked exactly the same as she had the day she left Station Harmony, except for an aura of quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Counselor Vextheran, she said calmly. I wondered when you would come. Ambassador Vasquez, he replied, forcing himself to remain polite. The Council requests a meeting to discuss the current galactic situation. Elena raised an eyebrow. The galactic situation? You mean the 3 major wars, the collapse of interstellar trade, and the fact that half the galaxy has declared independence from your authority? Vextheran's scales flushed with embarrassment. Yes, that situation. Very well, Elena said. You may land at coordinates I'm sending you now. Come alone. The meeting took place in a simple building overlooking Earth's Pacific Ocean. Elena sat across from Vextheran at a wooden table, with only a cup of coffee and a datapad between them. Through the windows, Vextheran could see human children playing on a beach while their parents watched peacefully. It was the most serene scene he had witnessed in a year. Your planet seems quiet, he observed. We've had practice maintaining peace, Elena replied. Coffee? I don't drink stimulants, Vextheran said automatically, then realized how petty that sounded. I mean, perhaps just a small cup. Elena poured coffee for both of them, her movements calm and unhurried. So, you want humanity to return to the Council? It wasn't a question, but Vextheran answered anyway. Yes, the galaxy needs your expertise. Our expertise? Elena took a sip of coffee. I thought we were primitive creatures who had outlived our usefulness. Vextheran winced. Every word he had spoken in that council chamber a year ago now felt like poison in his mouth. I was mistaken, Were you? Elena's voice remained mild, but there was steel beneath it. Or were you simply saying what you actually believed? Before Vextheran could answer, Elena's datapad chimed softly. She glanced at it and sighed. Excuse me for a moment. I'm monitoring the situation in the Kepler sector. The Kepler sector? Vextheran leaned forward. But that's council space. Why would you be monitoring? Because 600,000 refugees are fleeing the war zone, Elena interrupted. They're heading for human space, and we're preparing to receive them. Vextheran stared at her. You're taking in council refugees? After what we did to you? After what you did to us? Elena corrected gently. But yes, the Tisan Republic has asked for our help in relocating their population. It seems their war with the Veltar Confederacy has made their homeworld uninhabitable. The war that started because of a mistranslation. Vextheran said quietly, Yes. Elena set down her coffee cup. So far this year, we've assisted 17 species with refugee crises, mediated 12 territorial disputes, and helped establish 3 new trade networks, all with species that have left council space. You're building a new government, Vextheran realized. No, Elena said firmly. We're building partnerships. Equal partnerships based on mutual respect and genuine cooperation. No one species is in charge. No one gets to declare themselves superior to anyone else. Vextheran felt something break inside his chest. That's what we could have had. What we should have had. Yes, Elena agreed. But instead, you chose to call us parasites. The two sat in silence for several minutes, listening to the sound of waves crashing on the beach below. Finally, Vextheran found the courage to speak. Can you forgive us? Can humanity find it in their hearts to return and save the galaxy we destroyed? Elena looked at him for a long time before answering. Forgiveness isn't the issue, Counselor. Trust is. For 2,000 years, humanity served faithfully, and in return we were dismissed, insulted, and finally cast aside the moment you thought you didn't need us. We were wrong. Yes, you were. But being wrong isn't the same as understanding why you were wrong. Elena leaned forward. Tell me, Counselor, what do you think human mediators actually did? Vextheran thought carefully before answering. You translated between species that thought in completely different ways. You found common ground where none should have existed. You prevented conflicts by helping different beings understand each other. Good, Elena said. Now tell me, why could only humans do this? This time, Vextheran's answer came more slowly. Because humans can understand multiple different ways of thinking. Because your minds are flexible enough to bridge the gaps between other species? Elena nodded approvingly. And what does that tell you about human intelligence compared to other species? The question hung in the air like a sword. Vextheran understood what she was asking. For him to admit that humans weren't just useful servants, but were actually superior in certain crucial ways. That the species he had dismissed as primitive might be the most mentally sophisticated beings in the galaxy. It tells me, he said finally, that we were fools to treat you as anything less than equals. Close, Elena said, but not quite right. Vextheran frowned. Then what? It tells you that the concept of superior and inferior species is meaningless, Elena explained. Every species has unique strengths. Humans happen to be good at understanding and bridging differences between other minds. The Severians are brilliant at pattern recognition. The Vorthic excel at harmonic mathematics. The question isn't who's better than whom. The question is how we can work together. Elena stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful scene below. Humanity will return to Galactic civilization, Counselor, but not to serve the Council. We'll work with any species that wants to build something better. Something based on equality and respect. And the council? Vextheran asked. The council can join us if it's willing to change, Elena said. Complete reformation. No more hierarchy based on perceived superiority. No more dismissing any species as primitive or advanced. True cooperation between equals. Some species will never accept that, Vextheran warned. Elena turned back to him with a sad smile. I know, and that will be their choice. But for those who are willing to try something new, we'll be here. That evening, as Vextheran's ship departed from Earth, he carried with him an invitation that would reshape the galaxy. Some species would accept it, joining the growing network of worlds that worked with humanity as equals. Others, too proud to admit their mistakes, would cling to their failing council until it collapsed entirely. Elena stood at her window, watching the alien ship disappear into the stars. Behind her, reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy. More refugee crises, more species asking for help. More opportunities to build something better from the ashes of the old order. She picked up her coffee cup and walked to her desk, where 100 different problems waited for human insight, human patience, and human wisdom. There was work to do. There was always work to do, but now, for the first time in 2,000 years, humans would do that work as partners, not servants. And the galaxy would be better for it.